All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Ephraim. Today's date is December 15th, 2022. And if you listen to the sound of my voice, that means you were blessed to see another day. And for that, all praise, honor, and glory is due to the Most High God of Israel for now and forever. All right, Shalom, everyone. Um, we on the eve of another Shabbat. And I want to welcome all my new subscribers. I want to welcome, older and new alike. Welcome. Appreciate you all and you all's input and words of encouragement and support. 'Cause a brother definitely needs to be poured into. And I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? Because it does get frustrating. It can makes you down in your spirit. You know what I mean? You're doing all you can, and you have unseen forces kind of working against that. You know what I mean? So, that being said, thank you all. I want to shout out, Brother Pullen and Sister Young for blessing the brother with the contribution. I appreciate that, brother and sister. Thank you sincerely. And I ask that you all continue to support the channel. Do all you can. Every little bit helps, man. It really does. I appreciate everything that you do, commenting and liking, thumbs up in the video, and all that helps in the viewership, man. We're gonna try to keep it moving and keep it pushing. All right. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and select that notification bell and hit all so you'll be notified every time I upload a new presentation. And again, let's not rely totally on YouTube for that. Just come to the channel daily, and see what I got going on or whatever. So we can kind of try to just stand, as independently as we can. All right. Now this lesson is it's like a follow up to the lesson I did on the that post regarding the two creatures or animals of scripture, Leviathan and Behemoth, right? This is like a follow up to that, talking about the Neanderthals. I think the reason why some people try to not give the Neanderthals no light is because to do so would admit that the Earth is much older than what they thought. Because the bones and fossils that we have of these Neanderthals, and they were, for all intents and purposes, I think they were kind of a quasi subspecies of man. And I don't even know if subspecies is correct in labeling them, because from what I understand, every race except us has a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA, supposedly, except the Negroes or the Israelites. We don't have Neanderthal DNA. So allegedly now, so I don't. I'm not saying that as fact, but from what I understand and what I've read and been told, you know, virtually every race has a little small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. So anyway, we're gonna deal with that from that perspective. Again, y'all know me. I'm a creationist. Not hardcore, but yeah. We got proof of all this stuff. So yes, Neanderthals did walk the earth, and we had their DNA proof, their DNA to prove it. All right, let's get it.
This lesson is more so out of interest and intrigue. It's not it's not scripturally based. Talking about the DNA of Neanderthals and Neanderthals existing. Well, this has always fascinated me. Just like genetics, right? Because we know that Neanderthals existed because we have fossils, and not only that, but we actually have been able to extract DNA from Neanderthals. Now, Neanderthals were considered a subhuman species, if you will. But my question is, how can they be subhuman if we have humans walking around today with Neanderthal DNA? Makes no sense, right? So that's kind of mixed in with the whole Charles Darwin theory of evolution. In other words, Darwinism, right? I don't know if many of you are familiar with the theory of evolution or Darwinism, but essentially Charles Darwin believed that from a natural selection process that humans evolved from apes. Yeah, I know. Just to say it just sounds, you'd have to chuckle, right? It's like, how can humans have evolved from apes when we still have apes and we still have monkeys, right? So, so that's just kind of crazy. But, yeah, that's kind of in line with that. But here's the thing, as a believer or, as a creationist, clearly, creationists believe that the world as we know it started with Adam. God created the heavens, the earth, and Adam was the first man. He fell asleep, took his rib, made Eve. So Eve was the first woman. You guys know the story, right? So to even say that or regurgitate that Charles Darwin theory of evolution to a creationist is kind of like a non-starter. But here's the thing: this is why I'm doing this lesson today on Neanderthals. A couple of reasons. Number one, because like I said, I've always been intrigued with the fact that we know and we have proof that Neanderthals existed and walked the earth because we have literally have bones and fossils of them. Now, the things we don't know is like what type of human were they? Did they have language? Did they talk? Did they communicate with each other? Right? Those are the type of things we don't know, and I don't think we'll ever know. So that being said, I really think that this is one of those things where I don't think we'll ever pinpoint the answer to, when did the Neanderthals walk the earth, what happened to them, and clearly they couldn't have been subhuman because we have Neanderthal DNA. As a matter of fact, that's the second reason that really intrigued me, because Africans do not have Neanderthal DNA. Only Europeans, right? Yeah. No African has Neanderthal DNA. So that's one of the things I'm going to talk about in this lesson, this discussion. And third, I've received a notice saying that from 23andMe saying they had some new deal about my DNA, something yada yada yada. So I logged in and guess what? Oh, Dr. E I have 2% Neanderthal DNA. So I was like, wow, so that really took my curiosity level up even more. And I'm already knowing that with that being said, that comes from the 6% Irish blood I have flowing through my veins, and that came from an Irish woman, not a man, because my Y DNA haplotype goes back to Ephraim, from the male lineage. And see, that's why you go through that male line, that male lineage, right? Because when the children of Israel were scattered, it was a given that we were going to our blood was going to be mixed with a little bit with this, a little bit of that, whatever the case may be. But at the same time, that Y DNA still goes through the father, still goes through the male, right? So I was blessed for my mother and my father to both be Hebrew Israelites. Well, my father obviously being E1B1A7A, and my mother being L3E. Right. So anyway, when I saw that, I was like, wow. I was like, I got 2% Neanderthal DNA running through my veins. Imagine that. Right. So then I really got excited. I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and tackle this lesson. Go and get it out the way. I want to talk about this because that I found that really intriguing. And plus the fact that Africans and black people do not have that DNA, so that begs the question, so is there some truth and validity to white people kind of coming from the quote-unquote caves of Europe, as we've always heard, right? Does that have something to do with that? Since they're the only ones that actually possess Neanderthal DNA, did white people some kind of way come from them, or is there some kind of tie-in with Neanderthals and Europeans, right? So anyway, we're going to get into all that. So I think it'll be a very interesting discussion. Like I said, it's not Torah or Tanakh based or scripture based, because it's just based on science, DNA, and just something really interesting to talk about. All right, so let's get it. Okay, my apologies. I read that incorrectly. It says that I have actually less than 2% of Neanderthal DNA. So my bad on that. I thought it was saying I had 2%, but it says I have less than 2%. So I would have to imagine that other Israelites would probably fall under the same category in terms of the amount of Neanderthal DNA that we all would possess collectively as a people. And then it begs the question, you know, who were these people? Like it's not going to line up. So we can just throw that to the side, you know, because, you know, supposedly Neanderthals lived over, you know, a couple 100,000 years ago, right? And of course, you know, we as creationists, you know, of course, we don't go back that far with respect to the in the beginning, when in the beginning started, right? So, you know, we can just, you know, but I find it intriguing because my thing is, you know, and I'm not looking to kind of to verify anything or for anything to line up. You know, that's not the purpose of this lesson or the study with this hypothesis. My personal hypothesis is just the fact of, you know, being intrigued, knowing that they walked this earth. You know, and of course, there's no mention of them in the Bible, obviously, right? At least not that we know of. And we don't even know if they talked, if they communicated, you know. Who remembers this show back in the day, The Land of the Lost? Used to come on way back in the day and had the little cavemen people, little gleep, and oh, that was a cool little show, man. The Land of the Lost. There was the dinosaurs and the little cavemen and all that. It was kind of cool. But yeah, you know, so I'm intrigued by that. You know, it's just an hypothesis. It's just something to think about, something to talk about, right? Because it's not going to line up. It's definitely not going to line up for us as, you know, the children of Israel, clearly. But, you know, I mean, like I said, we have evidence and we have proof that they existed. So we can't deny that. I mean, it'd be silly to try to deny that they existed, because clearly they do it. And not only that, but clearly we have their DNA too. So like, how did we as humans collectively, as the children of Adam, ultimately, right? How did we end up with Neanderthals DNA? Could it be that in the beginning, as we think, started way before we think? In other words, that, you know, could it be that in the beginning started a couple 100,000 years ago? Could that be a possibility, right? So, you know, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. A lot of things it's not gonna ever line up. It's not gonna even make sense, and I think it's by design like that. The Most High put it like that. We're not gonna figure it out. Like, you know, He's not gonna let us just figure everything out. Like, nah, He's not gonna allow that. You know, so only thing we can do is talk about it. You know, even to an extent, scientists debate. Right, but what can't be debated is the fact that these so-called quote unquote cavemen, they did walk the earth. They existed, right? And it would appear to give some type of credence to Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. But the fact is, they weren't monkeys, though. They weren't apes, right? They had to have been human. So I don't even think it's fair to even, you know, classify them as subhuman or subspecies of human, because, well, if they're subspecies of human, what does that make us if we possess even the smallest percent of their DNA? Right? Last I checked, you can't interbreed human with something else and get a, you know, and make a baby or whatever the case may be. So that kind of pokes a hole in that theory of them being a subspecies of humans. Y'all following me? So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and let's see, you know, who were these Neanderthals, and when they walked the earth, and let's see if we can uncover kind of what they did based on the fossil evidence we have and things of that nature. Truthfully, the theory of revolution really is reserved and resigned for scientists, or for, you know, those who don't believe in God, or don't believe in a higher omnipotent power or a creator of the universe. I mean, there are literally people that think the universe just appeared out of nowhere, out of nothing. I mean, the people really believe that. And I guess they don't subscribe to the law of cause and effect like that, because if they did, they would know that that's just impossible. All right, nothing just appeared out of nowhere. For every very fact, there is a cause. Believe that. Okay, that's just the law of, really, it's the law of common sense. But you have so-called scientists with these fancy degrees trying to get us to believe that, men, as we know it, evolved from apes. Of course, that would be Darwinism, or men. The theory or the evolution of man is one of those things that's gonna be debated till the end of time. I mean, even as a 5%er back in the day, our ideology with that is that the black man created himself out of triple stage darkness. Didn't say how the black man created himself. It just said that the black man created himself out of triple stage darkness. All right. So I guess that kind of falls under the ideology that we came out of nothing, right? I don't believe that. You can look at just the way the human body is made up, the human anatomy, just how things work. There's no way. I mean, how can anyone believe that a human that looks and thinks like you and I could have made up the intricacies of the human body, the human mind, even? Like, I mean, we are walking, living, breathing proof of an omnipotent power much greater than us. But again, some people are just so they're just non-believers, right? They don't believe in God. They don't believe in an omnipotent power. They don't believe that the universe and oceans and they don't believe none of that stuff was the result of basically, as they say, someone in the sky, pulling the strings or whatever the case may be. Of course, we know it's a lot deeper than that. It's not just someone in the sky. We have a heaven and an earth. The universe is vast. The Most High created the universe and everything in it. I mean, everything in it. How many of you believe that there's life on other planets besides Earth? I do. I don't believe that I'm not arrogant enough to believe that Earth is the only planet that has life form on it. I don't. Not at all. I mean, I'm not a big, UFO theorist, nothing like that. But I do know I do believe that UFOs exist. I do believe that powers much greater than us have done things on this earth. Look at this. Let's look at the without going off on a tangent. Look at the 8 wonders of the world. Look at the pyramids. You really think that men that look like me and you built those pyramids? There's no physical way. None. I mean, rather you believe that angels helped build those pyramids, or extraterrestrials, which angels are considered extraterrestrials in a definitive sense. The bottom line is there is no physical humanly way that men that look like, I don't care how advanced, Pi couldn't even build those pyramids. As with all of our so-called advanced technology, we cannot duplicate building a pyramid. What does that tell you? There's powers that operate historically, things that have happened, things that have, in this country, in this world, not just this country, in this world, that can't be explained, right? Because look at the Sphinx, right? Like we can just go. I can go on and on, all right, about the great wonders of things in history and how it got to be, and things of that nature. But the bottom line is, scientists, this whole theory of evolution or the evolution of man, that's for people who don't believe in God, essentially. So this lesson does not apply to me, definitely doesn't apply to us as believers. Whether you're an Israelite or a Christian, we don't believe in the theory of evolution, right? And like I said, if we evolved from monkeys, how come we still have monkeys, right? Right? If that's the case, if we did evolve from monkeys, there wouldn't be no monkeys. And if we interbred with monkeys, we would be a whole different type of human being if we interbred with monkeys. So that, I don't even see how and why people even give that theory just any legitimacy at all. But anyway, enough of that. Let's go ahead and get into who and what are Neanderthals. Let's get it. All right. Neanderthals are an extinct species, or some scientists would call subspecies, of archaic humans who lived in Eurasia until about 40,000 years ago. Okay. So they most likely went extinct due to assimilation into the modern human genome, basically bred into extinction. uh, great climate change, disease, or a combination of these factors. They were fully replaced by early European modern humans. And in this, there is no doubt. It is unclear when the line of Neanderthals split from that of modern humans. Studies have produced various intervals ranging from 315,000 to more than 800,000 years ago. The time of divergence of Neanderthals from their ancestors is also unclear. The oldest potential Neanderthal bones date to 430,000 years ago, but the classification remains uncertain. Neanderthals are known from numerous fossils, like I mentioned earlier, especially from after 130,000 years ago. The type of specimen Neanderthal 1 was found in 1856 in the Neander Valley in present-day Germany. So I guess it's not lost on us that it was found in a European country, in Germany, right? Makes sense, lines up. After much debate over their validity, researchers, oh God, there they go, they want to debate everything. Man, man is a trip. Researchers depicted Neanderthals as primitive, stupid, and brutish for much of the early 20th century. Although knowledge and perception of them has markedly changed since then in the scientific community, the image of the unevolved caveman archetype remains prevalent in popular culture. Yes, that it does. Caveman. Got them clubbing women over the head with clubs and dragging them. It's just a trip, man. It's just how we adopt certain things and that's just adopted as truth and run with it. Like that's what it is. Caveman was just, they couldn't talk and they was violent and they didn't respect their women. They would just knock them in the head and just drag them. Like that's just, and I mean, you wonder like how and where we got these ideas from, right? But it says Neanderthal technology is thought to have been quite sophisticated. It includes the Mosterian stone tool industry and possibly the ability to create fire and build cave hearths, make adhesive birchbark tar, craft at least simple clothes similar to blankets and ponchos, weave, go seafaring through the Mediterranean, make use of medicinal plants, as well as treat severe injuries, store food, and use various cooking techniques such as roasting, boiling, and smoking. Neanderthals made use of an array of food, mainly hoofed and mammals, but also other megafauna, plants, small mammals, birds, and aquatic and marine resources. Although they were probably apex predators, they still competed with cave bears, cave lions, and cave hyenas and other large predators. A number of examples of symbolic thought in Paleolithic art have been inconclusively attributed to Neanderthals, namely possible ornaments made from bird bones or shells. Collections of unusual objects include crystals and fossils, engravings, music production indicated by the DrYehoshuaBenEphraim, and Spanish cave painting contentiously dated to before 65,000 years ago. Some claims of religious beliefs have been made. Neanderthals were likely capable of speech, possibly articulate, although the complexity of their language is not known. We'll get into that in the next segment in terms of what scientists say how they communicated and if they were able to communicate by virtue of their the way they were set up their larynx and things of that nature. Compared with modern humans, Neanderthals had a more robust build and proportionally shorter limbs. Researchers often explain these features as adaptations to conserve heat in a cold climate, but they may have also been adaptations for sprinting in the warmer forested landscape that Neanderthals often inhabited. Nonetheless, they had cold-specific adaptations such as specialized body fat storage, and as enlarged nose to warm air, although the nose could have been caused by genetic drift. The total population of Neanderthals remained low, proliferating weakly harmful genes and precluding effective long-distance networks. Nonetheless, there is evidence of regional cultures and thus of regular communication between communities. They may have frequented caves and moved between caves seasonally. Neanderthals lived in a high-stress environment with high trauma rates, and about 80% died before the age of 40. The 2010 Neanderthal Genome Project's draft report presented evidence for interbreeding between Neanderthals and modern humans. Well, let's stop there. See, that's what I have an issue with. So Interbreeding. So if they interbred with so-called modern humans, that would seem to indicate that modern humans lived at the time that the Neanderthals did. That's what they're implying. I mean, that's what I get. I don't know about you. And if they did interbreed with modern humans, well, why are they extinct? And nah, I'm not even going to go there. But I just that interbreeding thing. But then there has to be some kind of validity to that, though, because if Neanderthal DNA, albeit a small percentage of it, is still in around and in certain Europeans, whatever the case may be, then clearly it came from somewhere, right? So my question again is, well, why are they extinct then? Like, and if they interbred with modern, quote unquote, modern humans, that would mean us. So at some point, modern humans and Neanderthals walked the earth together, is what they're saying. I think that's what I'm getting, right? You guys can let me know what you think, right? But anyway, let's see here. It says 40 genomes. Interbreeding, yeah. So possibly occurred 219,000 years ago, but more likely 100,000 years ago, and again 65,000 years ago. Neanderthals also appear to have interbred with the Denisovans, a different group of archaic humans in Siberia. Around 1 to 4% of genomes of Eurasians, Australo-Melanesians, Native Americans, and North Africans are Neanderthal genes, while the inhabitants of sub-Saharan Africa have either none or possibly about 0.3% Neanderthal genes, which is virtually none. So I don't even why they would even, but anyway, in all, about 20% of distinctly Neanderthal genes survive today. Although many of the genes inherited from Neanderthals may have been detrimental and selected out, Neanderthal integration appears to have affected the modern human immune system and is also implicated in several other biological functions and structures, but a large portion appears to be non-coding DNA. So let's talk about this interbreeding thing a little bit, 'cause I find that kind of fascinating, right? It says Neanderthals have contributed approximately 1 to 4% of the genomes of non-African modern humans, although a modern human who lived about 40,000 years ago has been found to have between 6 to 9% Neanderthal DNA. The evidence we have of Neanderthal modern human interbreeding sheds light on the expansion of modern humans out of Africa. These new discoveries refute many previous hypotheses in which anatomically modern humans replaced archaic hominins like Neanderthals without any interbreeding. However, even with some interbreeding between modern humans and now extinct hominins, most of our genome still derives from Africa. Neanderthals could not have contributed to modern African people's genomes because Neanderthals evolved and lived exclusively in Eurasia and therefore could not have bred with the humans living in Africa at that time. And it says, for many years, the only evidence of human Neanderthal hybridization existed within modern human genes. However, in 2016, researchers published a new set of Neanderthal DNA sequences from Altai Cave in Siberia, as well as from Spain and Croatia, that show evidence of human Neanderthal interbreeding as far back as 100,000 years ago. Farther back than many previous estimates of humans' migration out of Africa. Their findings are the first to show human gene flow into the Neanderthal genome as opposed to Neanderthal DNA into the human genome. This data tells us that not only were human Neanderthal interbreeding events more frequent than previously thought, but also that an early migration of humans did in fact leave Africa before the population that survived and gave rise to all contemporary non-African modern humans. Wow, very, very interesting. We previously mentioned the lack of genetic contributions by Neanderthals into the modern human mitochondrial DNA gene pool. As we have shown that Neanderthal human interbreeding did occur, why wouldn't we find their DNA in our mitochondrial as well as our nuclear DNA then? There are several potential explanations for this. It's possible that there were at one point modern humans who possessed the Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA, but that their lineages died out. It is also highly possible that Neanderthals did not contribute to the mitochondrial genome by virtue of the nature of human Neanderthal admixture. While we know that humans and Neanderthals bred, we have no way of knowing what the possible social or cultural context for such breeding would have been. Because mitochondrial DNA is passed exclusively from mother to offspring, if Neanderthal males were the only ones contributing to the human genome, their contributions would not be present in the mitochondrial line. Of course, that's common sense. It is also possible that while interbreeding between Neanderthal males and human females could have produced fertile offspring, interbreeding between Neanderthal females and modern human males might not have produced fertile offspring, which would mean that the Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA could not be passed down. Finally, it is possible that modern humans do carry at least one mitochondrial DNA lineage that Neanderthals contributed to our genome, but that we have not yet sequenced that lineage in either modern humans or Neanderthals. Any of these explanations could underlie the lack of Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA in modern human populations. So my thing is this, right? Some scientists believe that Neanderthals, interbred with so-called quote-unquote modern humans, which would be us. And so that would seem to indicate that we were around much longer than what we thought. So that's a whole nother thing. I don't know. Like I said, I just think it's one of those things that we'll never really know. It can be debated to the end of time. We'll never figure that out. But clearly they walk this earth. And we have their DNA and fossils and things of that nature to prove that they did. So it would be, like I said, it'd be foolish to try to deny that. It's just from the standpoint of scripture and the Bible and the Torah and the Tanakh. It's a big question mark with that. And I think maybe, I don't know, this sounds kind of simplified, but maybe just that the small percentage of their DNA that exists today, maybe that's just the Most High's way of letting us know that, hey, they were here for whatever reason. I just don't believe that whole interbreeding thing. I don't agree with that, because I think if a bunch of Neanderthals mated or procreated with modern humans, I think that the human race would look a lot different than what it does. So I just don't really believe that theory. And like I said, I don't want to simplify it, but I don't believe that theory that they interbred. All right. So anyway, moving right along, let's get to the fact: did these people did they communicate? How did they communicate? Did they talk? Let's get to that. So you would think that rather they could form speech the way we can or speak the way we can, you got to figure that they communicated definitely in some way, somehow. Obviously, I mean, there are people that are deaf, that have sign language. There's ways to communicate without actually speaking, in other words. So I'm pretty sure that even if they couldn't form intelligent sentences or put words together like us, that they communicated in a way that they understood what each other meant. So let's kind of deal with that, 'cause that always kind of intrigued me too. Like they were always depicted as going like a caveman, like they couldn't talk, like they were just just kind of stupid and just they couldn't talk, but they walked as we did. And they so they made them seem like they were a cross between like an ape and a man or something. It was just kind of weird how history is always depicted them, especially like on TV and stuff. Like they were like little cavemen, like kind of like monkey men. They couldn't talk, but they could walk like us. And so anyway, let's see what this says about their language and how they spoke or whatever. In 1971, cognitive scientist Philip Lieberman reconstructed the Neanderthal vocal tract as similar to that of a newborn and incapable of producing nasal sounds, because they had a large mouth and thus lacked the necessity for a descended larynx to fit the entire tongue inside the mouth. He then concluded, this was his conclusion by his hypothesis, that they were anatomically unable to produce certain sounds, and thus lacked the capacity for articulate speech, albeit still capable of speech at a level higher than non-human primates. However, the lack of a descended larynx does not necessarily equate to a reduced vowel capacity. The 1983 discovery of a Neanderthal hyoid bone used in speech production in humans in Kibara 2, which is almost identical to that of humans, suggests that Neanderthals were capable of speech, and the ancestral Sema de los Eos hominins had human-like hyoid and air bones, which could suggest the early evolution of the modern human vocal apparatus. However, the hyoid does not definitively provide insight into vocal tract anatomy. Subsequent studies reconstruct the Neanderthal vocal apparatus as comparable to that of modern humans with a similar vocal repertoire. In 2015, Lieberman stated that Neanderthals were capable of synetical language, although nonetheless incapable of mastering any human dialect. The degree of language complexity is difficult to establish, but given that Neanderthals achieved some technical and cultural complexity and interbred with humans, it is reasonable to assume they were at least fairly articulate, comparable to modern humans. A somewhat complex language, possibly using syntax, was likely necessary to survive in their harsh environment, with Neanderthals needing to communicate about topics such as locations, hunting and gathering, and tool-making techniques. The FOXP gene in modern humans is associated with speech and language development. FOXP2 was present in Neanderthals, but not the gene's modern human variant. Neurologically, Neanderthals had an expanded Broca area operating the formulation of sentences and speech comprehension, but 11 of 48 genes which encode for language brainwaves had different methylation patterns between Neanderthals and modern humans. What this means is this could indicate a stronger ability in modern humans than Neanderthals to express language. Neuroscientist Andre Vesely argued that Neanderthals lacked mental synthesis, the behaviorally modern human imaginative ability to craft effectively infinite ideas using a finite amount of words. This is a hallmark of behavioral modernity, which he believed spontaneously appeared by about 70,000 years ago, the Upper Paleolithic Revolution. However, behavioral modernity is regarded as a process initiated much earlier, potentially as early as 400,000 years ago, and may have also been exhibited in Neanderthals. So again, all that to say is basically scientists, their hypothesis and what they think, because clearly we don't know what and how the Neanderthals communicated. My personal belief is that they communicated just not like how we do. They didn't speak as we did, yet they had their way of communicating. I won't go as far as they was saying they was walking around going, making unintelligible sounds, and maybe they did. I don't know. The fact is, we'll never know, and that's the thing about science and hypothesis. It's someone's guess based on the evidence that we have, and the knowledge that we have on their fossilized bones and reconstructing, things of that nature, their fossilized bones. So I mean, it's all one big guess. No one knows for sure. Clearly none of us was here 400,000 years ago, so we don't know what the heck how they spoke, or if they spoke. We don't know. We're just guessing. So anyway, yeah, that's that. I want to include in this very last segment. I'm going to include something that I just kind of wanted to add to this lesson, and it's about this this fossilized young Inca girl. She was 15 years old, and she died over 500 years ago. And she was fossilized, totally intact. This is just gonna freak y'all out. Check this out. All right, and in this section, not only did I find it, fascinating, but it kind of what came to my mind is the fact that Native Americans being placed on that 12 tribe chart, being Israel or whatever the case may be, and I'm not exactly sure where Native Americans came up out of. But I do know that they aren't Israel unless they have the Y-DNA haplotype of Jacob. And they were savages. They really were. What really sparked my mind on this particular story I'm about to share with y'all is that this girl was actually sacrificed. They dealt with that a lot, and I'm going to deal with the scripture that the Most High says about child sacrifice, because clearly that was a thing, right, back then. It says, well, initially this might look to you like any normal girl being treated by a doctor, but the girl in the photo is not any normal living girl, but that's the mummy of a 15-year-old child who has been dead for about 500 years. And like I told you, she was fossilized, totally intact, man. This is like unbelievable. She was found in 1999 near Lula Carlos, 6739 meter summit. An Argentine-Peruvian expedition found the perfectly preserved body, and she was nicknamed La Doncella, which means the maiden. According to the Inca, she was chosen to go and live with the gods. But in reality, she was a sacrifice to the Inca gods and had been brutally killed in the name of religion. Scientists say that her organs are intact, and it's as if she had died just a few weeks ago. From testing the samples of her hair, they could determine the type of diet she was on before her death. This led to the discovery that the Incan fattened their children before killing them. Months or even years before the sacrifice pilgrimage, these children were given diets which were those of the elite, consisting of maize and animal proteins. Judging from the condition of the body, it is believed that she was drugged and left to die in the mountains. It would not have taken much time for her to die due to the high exposure. The Incan high priests took their victims to high mountaintops for sacrifice, as the journey was extremely long and arduous, especially so for the younger victims. Coca leaves were fled to them to aid them in their breathing so as to allow them to reach the burial site alive. Upon reaching the burial site, the children were given an intoxicating drink to minimize pain, fear, and resistance, then killed them, either by strangulation, a blow to their head, or by leaving them to lose consciousness in the extreme cold and die of exposure. Many Incan children were offered a sacrifice during or after important events, such as the death of the Sapa Inca, who was the emperor, or during a famine. These sacrifices were known as capachoca. Why only children? Children were selected for sacrifice because they were considered to be the purest of beings. They were chosen for their beauty and possibly nobility. According to Inca beliefs, such children were to serve as guardians to their villages from their heights of the mountains, joining their ancestors and honored in death. The children wore shoes or slippers and dressed in colorful clothing, elaborately decorated with metal, bone, and cords. More than 100 precious ornaments were found to be buried with these children in the burial site. They were loosely wrapped in shawls and were seated cross-legged as they would have fallen asleep after being drugged. Early colonial Spanish missionaries wrote about this practice, but only recently have archaeologists such as Johann Reinhard begun to find the bodies of these victims on Andean mountaintops, naturally mummified due to the freezing temperatures and dry, windy mountain air. In 1995, the body of an almost entirely frozen young Inca girl, later named Mami Juanita, was discovered at Mount Ampato. Two more ice-preserved mummies, one girl and one boy, were discovered nearby a short while later. All showed signs of death by a blow to the head. So they sacrificed their children to whatever stupid god, they believed in or whatever. And I just think this is fascinating. It's sad to hear their story, but I think it's fascinating that we have literally like not living proof, but a totally preserved, mummified proof of what they did to her. And that's why it was important that I read her story to you all. So are they Israel? Nah. And what does the Most High say about child sacrifice? Well, we'll let the Most High have the last word. You all know me, and it always goes back to Torah for me. So I said I would let the Most High have the last word with respect to the last segment of this child sacrifice. And it starts, let's go with Leviticus 18:21. It says, You should not give any of your children to offer them to Molech or any of your so-called gods, or so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. In Deuteronomy 12:31, it says, you shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, for every abominable thing that the Lord hates they have done for their gods, for they even burn their sons and their daughters in the fire to their gods. In Ezekiel 16:20-21, it says, and you took your sons and your daughters, whom you had born to me, and these you sacrificed to them to be devoured. Were your whoring so small a matter that you slaughtered my children and delivered them up as an offering by fire to them? And then the final one I'll leave you with is Leviticus 20:1-5. So the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, say to the people of Israel, any one of the people of Israel, or the strangers who sojourn in Israel, who gives any of his children to Molech, shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones. I myself will set my face against that man and will cut him off from among his people, because he has given one of his children to Molech, to make my sanctuary unclean and to profane my holy name. And if the people of the land do at all close their eyes to that man when he gives one of his children to Molech, and do not put him to death, then I will set my face against that man and against his clan, and will cut them off from among their people, him and all who follow him in whoring after Molech. And that was the Most High in first person. And on that note, my people, Ahaya by Yeshem, Yeshua HaMashiach, Baruch Atah Adonai, for now and forever. It's Dr. Ephraim signing off. Love you guys.